Hello, this is Goku Footersome One, and I'm back. This time to do a video I've been thinking about doing for a while. I'm finally going to be talking about it. I don't know if I've talked about this, but this is going to be a little bit different. It's actually going to go back to what I used to do. Pitch videos. This is not directly a pitch. Like, this is not exactly giving what they should exactly do. Just a conceptual idea of, and it's related to this, the Legend of Zelda live action movie. Let me get that out of the way. How do you do a Legend of Zelda live action movie correctly? What are the things you should and should not do? And so a lot of people are going to pick their favorite Zelda games. A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, my personal favorite. Twilight Princess, Wind Waker. I could name all of them. Breath of the Wild. They would all kind of work, but not really. So I named all of those. And the beauty of all of those is they all have their own self-contained story. That's what Zelda does. That's what the Legend of Zelda does. There's usually a different Link and a different Zelda, and the world they create is unique to that world in the sense of there is still Hyrule Castle, there are still the Gorons, the Zora. All those elements are still there. There is these different tribes and these different groups, but the conflict of the world is self-contained. And in Zelda, in one of the games, they actually stated that Zelda is just the name of the female daughter that's born. So every Zelda, that's why there's always a Zelda. Link, yet again, I don't think technically they're called Link. It's a link to the player. That's where that name comes from. It's supposed to be a generic name. So maybe in one of the Zelda games, he's actually named Kevin. And but we have gotten to know him as Link. He will be called Link in the movie. Don't worry. But how would I do a Legend of Zelda movie? What are the concepts that need to be there? Well, first of all, as I stated, do not, and I mean do not under any circumstance, base it on a single game. You're then everybody's going to be relating it to that game. But I'm going to kind of do that in a way of kind of relating it to another game. It's going to be I think it should be its own original story. But A Link to the Past comes up with the perfect template that they should go based on. Now, it will be very clear. I am not saying do A Link to the Past. I'm saying take these concepts. Most Zelda games do this, but that game does something interesting. Twilight Princess also does this in a certain way as well, which there will be some spoilers for Link to the Past. If you've not played that game, go play that game. It is a very, very old game. It is one of the best Zelda games ever made. But with that said, what that game does, so most Zelda games have usually 3 dungeons in the beginning of the game, and then you may or may not get the Master Sword, and then you will have to go through a 4th area. Sometimes, like Ocarina of Time, it's very quick. Sometimes, like A Link to the Past, it's actually a dungeon with proper keys. But in that game, the villain, as far as we knew, was the wizard Aragam. I'm saying that name wrong, but he is a different character. Ganon's not the villain. Is Ganon the villain? Spoiler alert, yes he is. He's the final villain at the end of the game, but they put in this side villain. Why is this such a brilliant idea for a Legend of Zelda movie? Well, because first of all it gives you an antagonist for the first film. It makes the first film seem standalone. How you do the first film is you have 3 dungeons. You have key moments where he gets the item for the dungeon, he uses it, he gets the boss key. But beyond that, and maybe there isn't a boss key, but he does definitely find a key and open it. But beyond that, you do quick sequences kind of showing the other exciting things that are happening in the dungeon. Mistakes that he's making, barely surviving. That establish it, and you do this for all 3 of the initial dungeons. While you're doing that, you're also establishing things like maybe Lulu Ranch, Hyrule Castle, Zelda, how is she entangled in all of this? Setting up the world. What is this world? Where does Link start out at? He's not going to start out at the same place because we're not doing A Link to the Past. So it's not going to be his uncle going to the castle. There may not be the maidens that need to be saved. It may just be Zelda that needs to be saved. Those are going to be different. And it's not going to be Aragorn the Wizard. It's going to be a different character, but it's going to be similar to that in that you think that's the main villain. You think that's who you have to beat by the end. And then near the end, he gets the Master Sword. Is it in the Temple of Time? Is it in a forest? Is it somewhere we haven't done it yet? Yet again, that's the brilliance of this idea, is it can be any of those. It can be in the Temple of Time if you want to bring in some iconic elements, but you change things up. You don't start Link in a forest if you're going to do Temple of Time, because that's too Ocarina of Time. You change things up. Maybe he is in another village. Just wherever Link is, you started out, maybe you start him out as he's a knight for Hyrule Castle. I think they've done concepts like that, but that wouldn't necessarily go against anything that we know. This is just an idea of something you could do. As I said, this is what you should do. These are just concepts of what you can do. And then you have the 3 dungeons. You can make them a forest, water, fire. You can make them something different, like Link to the Past had a desert one. You can make them what you need them to be based on the story you want to tell. Where is Link? What is he doing? What are the characters we want to introduce? Do we want to introduce the Zora? Do we want to introduce Gorgons? Do we want to introduce other races? Yet again, you set that up. That is what you're doing in this first film. You're setting up the world, introducing characters. You're not going to introduce all of them. The sequels will have new characters. And then Link gets the Master Sword. He goes on. And then you make this kind of like a mini dungeon kind of thing. Is it Hyrule Castle? Maybe. But it could be anything. It could be a stronghold location. As I said, we're not copying a game. We're just taking parts from it that work to make our own original story. That's what this needs to be, an own original story. And then Link beats this, but something happens. The villain opens a portal, or he's trying to resurrect Ganon, and Ganon comes. Like, I don't think Ganon should be in this film proper, because I want this to be a standalone film. In essence, I'm going to get to what I mean by that in a minute, but in essence, I want this to feel like a standalone film where us Zelda fans know Ganon's the main villain. We know that Ganon's going to be the villain we're going to take on in this film series by the end, but it's this new character. Whatever his name is, maybe it's a she. And there's been many Zelda games that have done this, where you have this other antagonist, and then Ganon comes in the third act. Not necessarily Ganon will come in the third act. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But then you do something where now there's a whole bigger world. Now there are 5 dungeons, or 6 dungeons, or 4 dungeons, whatever number you want to use. And now you have 2 and 3 to explore those. And this is where you introduce Ganon as the actual antagonist. Whatever this person was doing, Ganon was the mastermind, or Ganon was resurrected, something related to Ganon. As we're not doing Ocarina of Time, Ganon isn't going to be a central figure, because in Ocarina of Time, it's essentially his origin story. So he is the central thing. That's how you do it. You do it in 3 films, but the reason you do it this way is once you leave the film, you get a completely self-contained story. If you've never played Zelda, well, you know this story. This is this story. It opens up for people that don't like Zelda, like my father, who might like a fantasy movie like Lord of the Rings, but isn't going to watch a Zelda movie per se. You open it up and make it look cool and epic for him, and you don't need to throw things that are complex and hard for him to understand. You just create everything you need to create. So that's how you do it. It's not that complex. It is an idea that I came up with. And as I said, we are picking and choosing things from the Zelda lore. That's what you should do. Put the best parts into the film. You should make homages. You may be able to talk about the Hero of Time as a past figure because you don't have to act like none of this stuff happened, but we're telling our story. The creators of the Zelda movie need to tell their story. Do not tell a story that came before because then people are going to compare it and they're going to get mad. And if you do Link to the Past and somebody like me that's an Ocarina of Time uh, favorite game, I might be a little sad. I have a friend that likes Twilight Princess. That's her favorite game. Guess what? We probably won't get that one. But yeah, that was just a quick idea of what should be done. This is Goku for the Sim 1. Please leave a comment what you think, and I'll see you next time. YouTube.